Cool, we are recording. So, welcome everybody to the 3 o'clock session here at GUGM on, I guess, the second official day, of our online GUGM. And as the name suggests for this session, we, the GIL staff, are going to be discussing Primo VE, since it is obviously a rather new product for USG, or new version of a former or a current product or whatever. But we wanted to discuss what's changed, what opportunities we have, and then what's sort of remained the same to some degree, but really talk about a lot of what's changed and where things now are that used to perhaps be in other places like the Primo back office, and talk about local customization versus consortial customization, and all those sort of things. So you all do have the ability to unmute at some point, but I think we'll probably ask that you save your questions toward the end. We have a slide for that at the very end, and you can either unmute and ask the questions then, or chat as well. We'll be monitoring the chat as best we can throughout this presentation. So let me go on to. Gotta figure out how to click. There we go. So I'm gonna give Chris and Cynthia an opportunity to unmute, and as I was joking with them before, their official titles don't do near enough to capture all the things they do. So I'm just going to let them have a chance to explain exactly what they do for GIL and what they do for you all. So Chris, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Fishburne. It says GIL Application Analyst on my job title, and that sort of fits. I work with Alma and Primo, configuring just about everything, including normalization rules, display add-ons for Primo, CSS, HTML, and also cloud apps. You may have seen the last copy app and may have downloaded it. That was me.
Hello, I'm Cynthia Reagan. I am the GIL coordinator for tickets and reports and everything in between. I work a little bit with Chris on certain things like the cloud apps. And I also handle all the ticketing that comes in for our other part of GIL, which is the Galileo side of support. And that's basically what I do.
All right, thanks, Chris and Cynthia. And yeah, I'm Sean Boyle, and I'm just the manager here at GIL Technical Support, but I obviously try to I work closely with Chris and Cynthia on Primo and Alma and all sorts of things, at least what I can understand, and then helping out as well with tickets and things like that. So a little bit of everything, it seems. All right. Well, what we're going to run through today is what really is Primo VE at a basic level, and then dig into a little bit of the areas that we have been working the most on for you all, specifically what we did to set up the Primo VE views, and then really get into the display and local fields. That's a large part of our work and continues to be a large part of our work. Oh, somebody says my sound is low. Yeah, that's this. Sorry. Give me just a sec. I'm on a UGA laptop that I don't. Is that a little better? Hopefully that's a tiny bit better, but let me know if it's not, because this isn't my laptop, so I'm okay. Good. I was a little worried about this in an earlier session. So anyway, sorry. Go through what is Primo VE, or talk about the Primo VE views, display and local fields, the local resource types that we've set up for you all, and then talk through some of the USG policies and practices and how they really in some ways haven't changed, but just as a reminder of how the committees are involved with Primo VE and things of that nature, and then sort of future projects that we've got currently up and running or are thinking about because of our migration to VE. They've opened up some opportunities for us. So sort of what is Primo VE? And if you haven't heard already, and I may not be, some people say Primo V, some people say Primo VE. I don't actually remember what ExLibris said it is, but VE actually stands for nothing. I mean, like literally doesn't mean anything. It's not an acronym for anything, so I'm not sure. I'm sure it's some inside joke on ExLibris's part. What's really changed or improved is we really have now a unified management, unified backend of Primo and Alma. And so previous to this, for those of you all that were familiar or remember or worked on it, perhaps at your institution or through OPAC committee or cataloging, we had the Primo back office, which was a standalone thing. And it was separate from Alma, and so we had to do work in the Primo back office to effect change in Primo, but we had to work from Alma through the back office to get to Primo, and so that was a little cumbersome at times. So we'd have to create a set in Alma, push it through to the network zone, push it from the network zone to Primo back office, and that's after we did work in the back office, like normal work or view work or whatever, and push those records through the back office, and then make changes to Primo that way. And then when you have to remember, we used to do monthly renorms. So if we'd liked our changes, we would run a renorm at the end of the month, which basically reset all of our records across USG. And so that was a little annoying at times. And then for those of you that are catalogers, if you did work to a record in Alma, it took I don't remember 6 hours or so to get see those changes in Primo. Well, now those two systems have been merged more or less, and so as it says here, most of the publishing is real time. So if you make a change in Alma, within about 15 minutes it'll appear, sometimes even faster. Sort of depends on the change that you've made. But now we can do all of our code table work in Primo. We can do Alma, I'm sorry. We can do label changes. We can do, add new views, add new fields. So do it really a lot of stuff, and it's almost immediately changed or updated in Primo VE. And so this has sort of reduced a lot of the duplication processes. We used to sometimes have to have things in two places or do things in two places or multiple places, and then most of these configuration changes are automatic as well. We didn't have to run any pipes, we don't have to run any other things. So there's a few drawbacks. We have to re-index sometimes now to get some things to appear, and we have to ask ExLibris to do re-indexing, but for the most part it's integrated, and it's pretty seamless and straightforward. You do, as I mentioned here, need a discovery admin role to see Primo VE configurations in Alma. So I suspect there's at least someone at your institution. We asked that folks sort of limit this role to a couple or a single person at each institution, just to avoid any configuration issues, but somebody at your institution likely has that role, and you can see the Primo VE configurations, and with that role you see just a new menu in Alma that says Discovery, and that's where you get to a lot of the or pretty much all the resources or the configuration windows we're going to talk about today. All right, so what I'm going to talk about first then are the views, and so essentially the view is your instance of Primo VE, and if you go into Alma and you go to Discovery and then Display Configuration, you'll see this screenshot here that lists all the different tabs that are available for view configuration, and so this is where you for the most part are editing the look and the feel of Primo VE. And so we, prior to migration, went through each institution and set up these views, basically looked at your old Primo and your old settings in Primo back office, and tried to recreate these settings, or did recreate these settings in Alma/Primo VE. And so here's Savannah State's view. There's no longer a services page view. That's something that used to exist in Primo back office that we didn't really ever mess with it though, so it just kind of sat in there from what I recall. But really we just have one view. You can create, I've seen a few other folks do it, create a test view. So I mean, we do have sandboxes, but if you do want to have a test view on your production data, that is something that you could have set up or set up for yourself as well, or you can work in the sandboxes. So it gives you some flexibility. But if you notice, there's a few tabs here that we're going to talk about that we spend the most time on. Not all of these. I would say some of these we don't ever really touch. One of the first tabs that I wanted to go over was the links menu. And so really what this does is it sort of, as it states, it's gonna allow you to edit or change those links that are in Primo VE up at the top of the Primo VE page, and especially when you click the ellipsis, and it brings up all these different options. And so again, we copied these directly from regular Primo or old Primo, and we just recreated them for everybody. One thing I do want to point out is, again, whoever on your campus has access or has the proper role to Discovery, if you all wish to, you could potentially customize these links on your own. That's something that I think, excuse me, is is totally okay, because you know, say this interlibrary loan link here, it's suddenly changed, or your library home, you know, page has changed, the URL's changed. It's pretty simple to go into Alma and just make an adjustment or make a change to a URL, and you hit save, and it's immediate. Some of these, like new titles, is controlled by GIL, so I wouldn't mess with that. But some of the other things you definitely could. Galileo URL never changes, so. But just know that, you know, that's one of the nice things about Primo VE is that you can, you know, there are some institutional customizations that I think are just fine to do on your own versus sending them through the sort of change request process that we'll talk about later. So just something to keep in mind. The other thing that is in the views is a tab for the advanced search configuration. And this controls all of our, as it says, all the advanced search indexing and the fields that are available to you actually in both the basic and the advanced search. So here is where we control what shows up in the dropdowns when you go to advanced search, or when you're in the basic search, and you have the pre-search filters, and it controls both the formats and the actual indexes, so like title, author, creator, subject. The formats over here, whether you want to search by book or journal or images or scores or whatever else, and also by language. So there's some out-of-the-box indexes that were already obviously there, and we've activated all those, or most of them. Actually, we've deactivated a few, but then we've also added some additional local fields or resource types to this. So for instance, OPAC folks wanted journal title and publisher to be added to the search filters. And so we added those for everybody. And so we have the ability to customize this both at a consortial level, so we do something for everybody, or you know, honestly, if somebody wanted something at an institutional level, we could add a field here, an index for advanced searching. So another one of the hang on. Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, so another one of the tabs that we have is search profiles, or search scopes, profiles, and slots. And so this I always have, Chris and I were talking about this earlier, that we have a hard time wrapping our brains around the hierarchy of these things. So there's, in the views configuration, you actually can configure slots. And so but you configure profiles and scopes in the discovery area under search profiles. Under search profiles in the discovery area. But the easy way I think I'm finally starting to wrap my head around it is there's a hierarchy of these things. Slots is like the top of the the big umbrella. Slots contain and then profiles get a little more specific, and then scopes get super granular. So starting from the top of slots, then you go to profiles, then you go down to scopes. And so this right here just sort of gives you the visual of what's what. So our GIL find drop down right here is where usually you toggle between GIL find and course reserves. Those are your slots. And then this next drop down over here, where we usually have, University of Georgia, so your local institution profile. You'll have University System of Georgia. You'll have, some people have, Media Desk. Some people have Main Library, whatever. Those are your profiles. And then within those profiles are a bunch of different scopes. But I'm going to explain those all a little bit as we go through. So I'm going to start at the sort of granular portion of it. And this is again in ALMA. So within ALMA, you have the ability in the profiles area to create scopes. And so these are really the foundations of creating a search. There's a bunch of out-of-the-box scopes that are available in there, but you can also do custom scopes. And so, the screenshot that's right here on the top are all the out-of-the-box scopes. So you can search by campuses, my entire network, my entire institution. So they've kind of created these ones that, if my entire institution is kind of like our institutional scope, it is. Whereas my entire network, I think captures all of USG stuff. But then you can also create custom scopes. And so if you notice down here on this other screenshot, sorry, it's kind of way down here low, but you can create a scope based on metadata or inventory or local fields. And so you can really kind of hone in on all that. I didn't have the ability to expand all those fields, but you can basically say, I want to create a scope based on, does it have available inventory? Or I want to create a scope based on it being in this particular location, or I want to create a scope based on it having this particular local field. So actually you can create a local field and then create a scope based on that local field. And I know some folks have done some scopes to help eliminate information from certain profiles, and so you can say it's not equal to this and eliminate that. So that's the very granular, basic level of the slots profile scope relationship. So then you get to profiles, and so you've created these scopes, and then you're going to stick them up under a profile. And so remember, profile most commonly is we have two of them set up at a minimum. We have the the institutional profile, and we have the USG profile. And so those profiles can contain just your local data, or they can contain a blend of local and outside data. We don't really do outside data except Georgia Tech does central index, or they can contain just outside data. So in one of the projects we got going on with archive space, we'll probably have a profile that's just archive space. Maybe, I don't know, we haven't figured it out, but we could do that. But then within a profile, you're going to have multiple and or custom scopes. And so here, this screenshot here, this is an out-of-the-box profile called myInst and CI. So it's my institution and central index. And so it contains central index resources, which central index is something we don't have, but it's articles and things like that. So it's kind of like EDS type stuff. And then it contains all the records belonging to your my institution. That's an out-of-the-box one, but you could say, all right, I want to create, we created the UGA scope, and it contains, my institution, discovery network, and then any other profile, I'm sorry, the UGA profile, and it contains all these scopes of different sets of resources. And obviously a profile must contain at least one scope. And so then finally, after you got your scopes, you got your profiles, then you get to the final part of it, is the slots. And this one was always kind of the hardest for me to figure out why these things exist. But it's really, you know, this is configured in a slightly different area. This is in the views area, but these are just the top of the hierarchy. They contain, so you can create the scopes, you can create the profiles, and then you can create the slots to search certain profiles, which then search certain scopes. So it can be a mix of data, as you see here. You know, the GIL find slot in this case is Georgia Southern's. So when somebody leaves it on GIL find, they're going to end up searching the My Institution profile, the Discovery Network, you know, all of these slots, these profiles are in the slot. And so you can see how you could, you know, do a lot of things with the slot profile scope relationships. And you know, we again have only recreated what we have in had in Primo back office. I think there is still some customization experimentation that could go on here. I'm thinking specifically about when ebooks that belong to other institutions show up in the USG profile, whether that could be eliminated or not, things like that. There's possibility for things like that. So that, I hope that sort of captured how kind of strange and weird that is in a way, but hopefully that made sense. If you think slots, profiles, scopes, sort of from largest to smallest, that sort of keeps it in line for me. All right. So also in the views are the brief results. These are all of the mainly when you do a search in Primo VE, this would be all of the facets that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. But then it also controls everything, how many number of items to display in the facets, and then, you know, how the facets are sorted. So this one's pretty straightforward, honestly. But then it also provides some control over dedupe and Ferber. And we don't have Ferber turned on right now, but there's you know, always a chance that we'll investigate it in the future and see if we can. Georgia Tech actually has theirs up and running. And then we also do have a committee that is looking at dedupe currently to sort of work on the issues that it's having in certain situations. And the brief record display is also something that we don't mess with a whole lot. Once we've got it set up, it's kind of an autopilot, but this is what, so the brief results really control the facets. The brief record display controls what you see for each record on the brief display page. So we have it here showing, you know, when you see a record, you see the title, you see the creator, you see the edition or the publisher, and the creation date. And then this also controls those action items that you have. So like permalinks and email and the citation things as well. And so here's where we probably spend a good chunk of our time, at least partly in this section, but then Chris is going to talk about how we get things to this part. The full record services. So under the full record services tab, there is a lot of the stuff in there is not particularly helpful, but there is one section of the full record services called record details that allow us to add, as you can see here on this lower screenshot, add display fields. And so if you notice in the screenshot over here, we've got title, author, subject, content, summary. All of these display fields are showing because we've set them up in the record full display details area. And so, but the display of these is controlled by norm rules. And so really it's those norm rules that drive how things display, what displays, whether they're hyperlinked, what doesn't display. The order of them really is controlled in the view, but you know, the content of them is controlled elsewhere. So I think that's where Chris is going to take over, yes, and talk about how we get things to display the way we want to most of the time in Primo VE.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
So the way we do that for display and local fields is what are called normalization rules. This comprises a large portion of what we do because they are complicated and very touchy on on how they work. So it's a constant iterative cycle of working on the rule, testing, distributing, making sure it looks right, and then if it doesn't, going back to the very beginning of working on it. Alma lets you create, there's a bunch of out-of-the-box fields and local fields that can be defined by us, which is really similar to the Primo back office. But VE, instead of using the back office language, it uses regular expressions, or RegEx. The out-of-the-box fields cover a lot of the big things like title, subject, contributor, that sort of thing. Fields everybody will want to see all of the time. And we can edit them, but unfortunately those rules are not distributable from the network zone. So each time we have to change one of those rules, we have to change it for each individual institution. Luckily, testing we only have to do for one institution. We just have to copy and paste it 28 times. Also, somewhat unfortunately, the out-of-the-box search and facet rules are not editable, which there will be more on that later too. And right there, we've got a link to all of the mapped out-of-the-box fields, so you can see what mark field goes to what Primo VE field. For local fields, they are created from scratch in Alma. For the most part, they are direct translations from the Primo back office. These cover things like notes, audience, publisher information, MMS IDs, etc. And these can be distributed from the network zone, so everybody just gets those at once, which makes our life a lot easier. We've got 100 local display fields total allotted to us. This isn't, this is for the whole network, not just an institution. Display fields 51 and above, those are can be distributed from the NZ network zone, and the fields 1 through 50 are meant specifically for local use, so for each individual institution, and because of that are not distributable.
Chris, I'm going to back up real fast and grab this link if I can. Oop.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ah.
I saw the question, but I didn't want to
no, that's all right.
lose my flow there.
But if I don't do it now, I won't do it at all. Here's that.
No, that's fair.
Boom. All right, there we go. And slideshow back on.
I think someone has their hand up, has a question.
Oh, I had my hand up to ask to copy paste the link, but they didn't. So
Yeah, and I think Wilhelmina,
Okay.
we'll address what my best assumption is that your question a little later too as well.
yeah, mine's kind of fringe. Like I think it would be disruptive to do it right before the end, because I see like most people here just want to know what is configurable so they can ask.
But we'll have some on the change process.
Like most people just want to know, okay, on this search I can make noise and get it configured, but yeah, mine is a little bit fringe, so I'll ask at the very end.
Okay.
No worries. Okay, so this is a kind of a pseudo example of what I'm talking about for the normalization rule. You've got a title. There's a priority, so basically a rule order, and it follows a when then flow, where you have when, condition 1, condition 2, so on and so forth. Then you transform the field how you want. That's what uses a bunch of the regular expressions. And then at the very end, you set the display field to what you want it to be. And with a nice simple example, one of our local fields, LDS65, which I think is publications or publisher info. When Mark 581 has any of those subfields, create LDS65 in the display with the subfields for Mark 581. Very simple, very readable. But then you have examples like that, which is one of our contributor norm rules. And I mean one of. I don't really want to go through this whole thing, but all of these transformations, the set temps, the remove substring, the concatenate, prefix, suffix, all that does is makes it from last name, first name to first name, last name without punctuation. And then it concats film producer onto the end of it. All that text just does that simple operation.
Oh, wait, I was muted. Hang on. I was going to say, yeah, sorry. I was going to say, and I didn't put that in here, but if present, other fields would be added as well.
It does also add other fields. Yes.
It does even more.
It does more than that.
But I think.
But that's not all.
But I do think the ability to set things to a temp field in the new norm rules has been both a mind shift, and Chris, I think for both of us, maybe more me, but then also a bit of a game changer once we figured out how we could manipulate it, and looking through a lot of documentation. So it
has made things both easier and more difficult at the same time.
Yep. We can do a lot more. It just takes us a little longer to figure out how to do those things sometimes.
Right.
This being one of the most extreme examples.
All right. And we've also got normalization rules for facets, which are separate from the display norm rules. Excuse me. We can edit local facets, as we said before, but we can't edit out of the box ones, which has proved a bit frustrating on our end. To create a facet, a local search facet, you add the rule to a table in Alma, create the display rule, and there's basically a checkbox to enable for search and facet. And that you create the rule as shown on the right there. And for some reason, only with search and facet, there is a wonderful little test feature where you can put in an MMS ID and it will show a normalized local field. I don't know why it doesn't do that for display. I'm hoping maybe we can put that as a NERS request at some point, because that has made life way easier. You can also configure local resource types. Most of them are already covered in out-of-the-box rules, as you'd expect, which Sean will copy the link and put it into the chat. But some, of course, are not, notably microforms, microfiche, micro-opaques, microfilm. So we've created local types in the network zone. And that also requires some regular expressions to get to work. In this example for microfiche, if you look in the column value in the mark field, that's a regular expression, which basically says in the leader field position 6, we don't want it to be any of those subfields, and we want the 23rd position of mark 008 to be equal to B. And that means it's a microfiche. These are just some policies and practices. We've got the OPAC committee, the cataloging committee. Occasionally the special collection committee also has a request. We have a change request process, which is linked below, which I'm sure Sean will copy and paste into the chat. exactly. That helps us kind of determine what needs to be done, what priority it needs to be, and lets us just keep track of the whole process. We do also have the ticketing system, which you can also use for some of the smaller things. And what can be changed beyond just kind of the labels you find in Alma, which does encompass a lot. There's the homepage HTML, which is always a local matter. That's per institution. That's not the network zone. There's CSS and JavaScript add-ons for both the central package, which is the network zone. Those are things that everybody shares. Mobile CSS, spacing, availability counts, the blocking banner. And there are things that are specific to each institution, like branding, institution colors, logos, chat widgets, there's local banners, etc. There is Primo Studio, which you can use, but it doesn't really allow terribly specific control, and the code it generates is not really readable. Georgia Tech used Primo Studio, and I'm still detranslating what it is. And it also allows more complexity to Primo. We've got links to the OPAC and cataloging policies, which will also be put in the chat in a bit.
Yeah, I'll get those here in a second.
Yeah, I'll get those in a second. And we're already working on future projects. I'm currently working on getting archive space records exported from archive space to import into Alma/Primo using UNG Sandbox as a guinea pig. Thank you, Allison, if you're here. Sean earlier talked about the dedupe rules, getting those working, and Ferber for all of our records.
Yeah, and I will say there's an official dedupe rules working group that is, oh god, I'm gonna get this wrong. I think it's a cat team subgroup or working group that a number of people are involved with, and they're hoping to make some recommendations by into summer, I think is their timeline. And the Ferber is more one of those things that I think just there's a question mark there, because at some point we may want to consider it, but maybe not. So all right, so that's kind of, we figured we would kind of go through this and leave some time for questions. And I know, oh yeah, Lynn said yes, it's a cataloging subcommittee for dedupe. So I see that Wilhelmina had a question that's really sort of getting to the concept, and correct me if I'm wrong, of what's local and what's consortial. What do we really, now that we do have some more local control, what's for lack of a better word, allowable, I guess, or suggested. And I'm going to take a stab at this, and Lynn and others feel free, or that have been involved in the OPAC cat team change process for a while as well. But we're still feeling our way through this a bit. I would argue that, earlier on I said, so let's go back to this screen here. The OPAC and the cataloging committees are still, I'd say, one of the primary vehicles for requesting changes to Primo that would significantly affect, the look and the feel of a field, or what's displayed in a field. As much as we can, we try to keep some of that standardized. But as I said earlier in the presentation, there are some things, and this gets to Chris's point, some of the hard-coded HTML stuff a little bit, like a URL here or there, or if you want an extra, this isn't hard-coded, but an extra facet, like Georgia Southern, for instance, has their discovery facet enabled, but others don't because they've set up, not discovery, I'm sorry, collections, because they've set up collections in their Alma. And so there are some of those very local configurations that wouldn't really affect other folks, and then also don't drastically change sort of the way GIL find or looks between institutions. So I'm sort of being a little vague in all this, and anybody else feel free to jump in if you feel like I've gone too far off the track here. But we're still keeping most things, I think, through OPAC and cataloging for consortial-wide stuff, and so as much as we can. But obviously scopes and profiles and slots, if you wanted to start to take a stab at those, folks have already done that here and there, because those are your resources and you're just sort of arranging them to be discoverable in a slightly different way, or with different drop downs or different groupings of them in Alma. And so I think that's just fine. So does that kind of get to it, Wilhelmina? I know that's
Well, I guess my thing is, so I started at Georgia Southern in November, so I don't know a lot of the history of GIL. And I guess that a lot of these settings on Primo were not to where people could even turn it on for them to edit. So Primo back office until maybe January. I know that before Primo VE launched, there were settings where if I clicked to edit them in Primo, it would say, if you edit this, you're breaking the connection to the network zone. And I'd be like, oh, okay, well, I won't do that. And the context that I'd come up in is one of the format for anything that was audio at all showed up as audio CD. That was like a bug I had reported in the Primo VE testing. And I had found where that was configurable, but it was like, if I changed it, it would break the connection to the network zone. That setting, if I go and click to edit the same setting now in Primo VE, it doesn't pop up any warning that it's going to break the connection to the network zone. But I have gone to a consortial implementations like online meeting where apparently people like, you can break the connection to the network zone and it just won't pop up a warning. So that's why I wanted to know, like, if I'm like, okay, let me test something, see what it looks like, and then report it to GIL to go through OPAC. And meanwhile, I'll just roll it back and wait till it comes through OPAC. I don't want to have something where I've broken the connection to the network zone and I don't know that I've broken the connection to the network zone.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
And
So
the other thing is I didn't realize like there's a little bit that I can't do on the test server. So like, I want to say analytics doesn't work, isn't set up completely on the test server. And I think staying on the test server is probably the fix for this, like staying on the test server and then sending things to OPAC committee. But I just want to check whether can means should with settings versus can edit the button means that maybe I'm breaking the connection to the network zone and then like everything's hunky-dory, like today, everything's great this week, but next year GIL puts out updates that are awesome and then they don't come through because I broke the connection to the network zone.
Well, so, the good thing is that most of the time, I'd say 99% of the time, if we push something from the network zone, we always get the pop-up that say, would you like to override institutional settings? And so we have our tables or whatever that we know we're always pushing out, or fairly often. So you'll end up, if you do by chance break something or something gets changed locally that was connected, it'll end up getting relinked, which is good news. I'd say as much as you can, and it may not always be obvious, but a lot of times, and it may not even be labeled properly, but a lot of times on your Alma side of things, you will see, hopefully, um, a sort of a field that says this was last updated by network or last updated by system, and that's a good sign too that it's got a link to the network zone, even if it doesn't say it does when you start to edit it. Or it will sometimes also have an area where it says managed in network, and it'll say have a yes or no. And so those are sometimes good signs. And again, they're not foolproof because, like you've noticed, there are some times when it may not give you that little warning, but you can look for those other signs. So I guess to your question, like if something does get changed, it'll eventually get overwritten at some point, which is a good um, uh, fail safe or whatever you want to call it. So those are some of the things you can look for. But the majority of the time, we're trying to push as many things from the network zone, especially when it comes to labels, as possible. Like you said about the audio CD stuff,
Yeah,
things like that.
there are two specific settings that I want to make sure I didn't break the connection with the network zone. Should I just do like a ticket to GIL?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and then the other part I wanted to say, like you said, that the test environments or the sandboxes aren't always 100% accurate with data, but if you ever do want to test anything and just break things, that's, I mean, within reason. I mean, we can always we can fix the sandbox pretty easily, but I'd say do, the majority of your testing in the sandbox is just to see what happens when you want to do something. And again, I'd like to reiterate to everybody on the call that it's sandboxes are set to show specific institutions data. So we have sandbox for Georgia Southern, we have sandbox for Clayton, all that. But sandboxes are open to anyone. So you can go into UGA's sandbox, you can go into Clayton's sandbox, you can go into MGA's sandbox and use it for testing if needed. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that because we here at GIL go into everybody's sandboxes as well. So. But yes, so Wilmina, you can submit a ticket to that for that. All right, so it looks like anybody so Jessica, I don't know if this is way off topic, so feel free to pass, but I was curious about the relevancy in Primo VE. Seems different than Primo. Admittedly, I haven't looked into the relevancy rankings all that much in Primo VE. We sort of but there is a configuration for it, and so it's not something that I have had a chance to test yet, but it is the same table that was available in Primo Backoffice. It's essentially you boost things. Chris and I spent a little bit of time trying to work with the relevancy back in old Primo Backoffice days for some ISSN boosting, I think it was. And we tried to push things down and boost other things up, and it just never really worked for us in Backoffice. So I
Never
haven't.
make any significant change.
Yeah. So I haven't had a chance to really look at it. But it is in the search configurations in Primo VE. And there is the ability to like boost your own resources and then boost your resources by different fields, so like title, and there is an out of the box version of it. So certainly I would feel like that would be a good situation if y'all, or if a local person, or if you wanted GIL to mess with it, we could certainly keep the out of the box settings for production and change the sandbox settings to what we think they should be, and see what sort of difference it makes. I don't know if it would also require a reindex, but that might be the case, but I'm not sure. Oh no reindexing is required. I just pulled up the page. So that's certainly worth something. So if you wanted to submit a ticket and or try it out yourself, we could certainly take a look at it. So that is one of those things that I sort of had on the back burner, but just haven't had any time to sort of take a look at. Okay, so it just seems inconsistent. Yeah. All right, so does anybody else have any questions? Like, feel free to chat or unmute if you desire. Or Chris or Cynthia, if I've missed anything that you wanted to bring up.
The only thing I'd add is if for whatever reason you don't feel comfortable making the change, like
You might have just muted yourself, Chris.
did I mute myself?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I did. Okay. If at any point you don't feel comfortable changing something in Alma, please feel free to reach out to us. You don't. We're not going to make anybody change anything.
Absolutely, yeah. Comfortable or don't have the time or the
Yeah, just
Yeah.
create a ticket for it and we'll take care of it.
Yep.
And I will say that the OPAC committee are a nice bunch of folks as well, and they will listen to your suggestions and your comments and help shepherd requests and changes through their process, and the cataloging folks as well. All right, well, does anybody have anything else?
Kara raised her.
Here,
Hi, Sean, or Chris, either one might have options for this. So our spring semester expiration date was 5/13, and we're still struggling with our patron loads. It seems to be there's a new error message that comes when a patron's account is expired. I know that when they don't have a Alma account at all, we customize that language. Is there more than one, or are they just not reading it correctly? I can't replicate it at the moment.
More than one what?
Error message. Let me go back. I just got a ticket.
That's possible. There are a large number of error messages, and I have noticed that some of them would be for similar errors.
Let me see. I have
If you can send, maybe if you want to open a ticket and send a screenshot
Okay.
of the error message you'd like to change.
Yeah. Could you look it up by just the language? Because I don't have
yeah.
a screenshot. Okay.
Oh, because you can't replicate.
I guess I would have to expire myself and then try
Yeah, if
signing in.
Yeah, if you can, just have a test patron and maybe expire.
Yeah, because I think, especially with authentication into Primo VE, it's either in Alma, I
Yeah.
guess maybe an essential package thing, or then also maybe your IDP, your service provider for that. So that could
Yeah,
be the other,
it might be an IDP message, which
we'd have to get with whoever.
that'd be Kevin,
Right. Well,
possibly.
but then it'd be your
or
institution.
their IDP people.
So yeah, send us that, Kara. And I feel like we've maybe bumped up against this once before with you all, but I can't recall.
We did. When
Yep.
we've customized the message when they don't have an account at all.
Yes.
And we've just now
Okay.
signed, it's like every day we have multiple students that are trying to request, particularly graduate students, and they're not enrolled for the summer.
Okay.
So, yeah. I just didn't know this was certainly good timing would this be a good example, right? That we can't see this kind of stuff in the back of the house now because of Primo VE. This would still be something that would need to be routed through to you.
No,
not
if you
necessarily,
know where to look, you can find it.
Okay.
Yeah, but the labels area is pretty extensive, so we just have to
I know,
where
right?
it is in there.
Yeah,
so.
we've got a couple tricks to find what we're looking for.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, I will start with you all since you have
Yep.
experience with this, and then we'll learn from this experience.
That sounds good.
I will not be able to get the ticket in today. I will do it sometime by the end of the week.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Chris Clayton asked about how long old Primo
Oh.
links will redirect. I think for perpetuity. I mean, forever.
Until we decide that they won't.
Yeah, but that being said, I mean, we have a table set up in Alma that basically says when somebody hits this part of a URL, it redirects it to this.
Yeah.
And that table is up and running. My only fear would be at some point ExLibris would stop the redirecting, which they're doing the redirecting. So
Yes.
to the best of your ability, if you can, and you all at Clayton may have found all your links, but if folks haven't found all your old links, I would go ahead and keep searching for them. And get them updated if you can. And that the redirection also applies, maybe even more importantly, at times to any deep links or search boxes that maybe had not been updated yet. Hopefully those are mostly updated.
Yes. Don't forget to update your search boxes.
All right. Does anybody have anything else? All right. Well, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. That's what we're here for. And yeah, please have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you all later on. Bye, everybody.